The little girl said it so quietly that, at first, Nathan Cole thought he had heard the wrong thing. The ballroom was full of soft gold light, polished shoes, camera flashes, and the low, careful music of a string quartet warming up in the corner. Fathers were adjusting tiny corsages onto satin dresses. Daughters were standing on tiptoe, smoothing the fronts of jackets, clutching glitter purses, and asking questions only children ask on important nights. And in the middle of all that beauty, a 6-year-old girl in a pale blue dress stood by the edge of the dance floor, holding a paper bracelet in both hands like it might fall apart if she loosened her fingers. Her chin trembled once. Then she looked up at the man in the dark suit beside her and whispered, "It's the father-daughter dance and I'm alone." Nathan Cole, CEO of Cole and Mercer Holdings. A man whose calendar was planned 6 months in advance, and whose name opened doors in 3 cities, felt something inside him stop. Because she wasn't crying dramatically, she wasn't making a scene, she was doing something far more devastating. She was trying to be brave. And if you've ever believed that a child should never have to hide heartbreak to make adults comfortable, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share this story with someone who still believes kindness matters when no one expects it. Because what happened next didn't begin with power. It began with a small voice that could have gone unheard. Her name was Lily Bennett. She was 6 years old, missing one front tooth, and wearing white shoes with tiny silver stars on the straps. Her hair had been curled too carefully for a regular Thursday, and a blue ribbon sat slightly crooked above her left ear, as if whoever tied it had done their best with hands that were tired and a little shaky. The dress was beautiful, though not expensive. The hem had been let out by hand. If you looked closely, you could see the tiny stitches. The kind made by someone who could not afford another dress, but refused to let that be the same thing as not caring. Lily stood beside her teacher, Miss Harper, in the grand ballroom of St. Anne's Academy, where the annual father-daughter spring dance had become one of those polished community traditions people loved to photograph and praise. Nathan was there because his company had just funded the school's new scholarship wing. He had given a short speech 10 minutes earlier about opportunity, character, and building futures. He had been reaching for his coat when he noticed the little girl near the wall. At first, he noticed only that she did not move like the other children. Everyone else seemed lit from within by anticipation. Lily looked as though she had been carefully folded inward. Then he heard her speak. Miss Harper crouched in front of her and brushed a trembling hand over Lily's shoulder. "Sweetheart," she said gently, "we can sit for a minute, all right." Lily nodded, but her eyes stayed on the dance floor. The first notes of the father-daughter song began floating across the room. It wasn't loud. That made it worse. Nathan had negotiated billion-dollar acquisitions without losing his composure. He had walked into hostile boardrooms and left with signatures. He had buried his own father at 23 without shedding a public tear. But now, watching that little girl stand perfectly still, while the room filled with fathers bending down to take small hands in theirs, he felt an old ache open somewhere behind his ribs. Because he knew that look. Not exactly, but enough. Nathan was 43, disciplined, admired, and far lonelier than people who called him successful ever imagined. He had grown up in a wealthy house where provision was plentiful and tenderness was scarce. His father believed money covered every silence. His mother had been the only soft thing in that home, and when she died, Nathan learned how easily children become careful when love starts arriving late. He had not planned to stay for the dance. He certainly had not planned to care, yet here he was, watching Lily's fingers tighten around that paper bracelet. Miss Harper finally stood and noticed him. "Mr. Cole," she said, slightly flustered, "I'm sorry. I didn't realize anyone was still." Nathan took one step closer. "Is she all right?" teachers develop a particular expression when they are deciding, in real time, whether honesty will help or expose a child. Miss Harper looked at Lily, then back at Nathan. She was supposed to come with her father, she said softly, or her grandfather. Her mother said someone would make it. Lily did not look up when she spoke. Mom had to work, she said. Grandpa's bus didn't come, and Daddy, she stopped there. Children know where sentences break adults. Miss Harper finished it as gently as she could. Lily's father passed away last year. The music swelled. Across the room, men lifted daughters into their arms. Small shoes brushed polished floors. Cameras flashed. Somebody laughed near the dessert table, and Lily stood in the middle of all of it, abandoned not by love perhaps, but by circumstance, which to a 6-year-old can feel exactly the same. Nathan felt the old hollow place inside himself answer her silence. He loosened his tie with one hand. Then, before the practical part of his brain could stop him, he set down his coat on a nearby chair, walked to the registration table, picked up one of the spare father bracelets, fastened it around his wrist, and turned back toward the dance floor. "Lily," he said. She finally looked at him. He held out his hand. "I know I'm not the person you were waiting for," he said, "but no one should have to stand alone during a song like this. If it's all right with you, I'd be honored to dance with you." The room did not stop all at once. It slowed. People noticed in pieces. A mother near the punch bowl lowered her cup. A photographer turned his lens. 2 little girls stopped spinning. Miss Harper covered her mouth. Lily looked at his hand, then at his face, searching him with the absolute seriousness children use when deciding whether the world is safe. "Do you know how?" she asked. Nathan almost laughed, but there was too much ache in the moment for that. "I can learn fast," he said. For half a heartbeat, Lily did not move. Then she placed her small hand in his. It was so light that he felt the weight of it all the way to his throat. He led her onto the dance floor as carefully as if he were carrying something breakable through fire. The song was old-fashioned and slow, the kind of song that gives memory room to sit down beside you. Nathan put one hand respectfully above her shoulder blade and let her tiny fingers rest in his other hand. At first, Lily moved stiffly, as if she were afraid the whole thing might be taken back. Then he bent slightly and whispered, "You can stand on my shoes if that helps." Her eyes widened. "Really?" "Absolutely." She stepped onto his shoes and the smallest smile in the world appeared. It changed the room. There are moments when a crowd stops being a crowd and becomes a witness. This was one of them. Nathan guided her in slow circles under the chandelier light. The satin ribbon in her hair trembled whenever she turned. Her bracelet rustled softly. He could smell baby shampoo and school glue and the faint powdery scent of laundry detergent from her dress. "What color are your stars?" he asked, glancing at her shoes. "Silver," she said. "Mom says they make me look brave." "They do. My daddy liked stars," she added after a moment. "He said if you feel lost, you should look up first." Nathan swallowed. "That sounds wise." He was. The answer came with such simple certainty that Nathan had to look away for a second. On the edge of the floor, phones had begun to rise. Parents recorded. Teachers cried quietly. A custodian paused with a folded chair still in his hands. Even the principal, who usually smiled in the polished institutional way people do at donor events, looked genuinely shaken. But the real story had started long before Lily walked into that ballroom alone. It had started with her mother, Claire Bennett, at 6:10 that morning, standing in a cramped apartment kitchen with one shoe on and one still in her hand, trying not to cry in front of her daughter. Claire was 31, a hospital billing clerk, a part-time cashier, and a widow who had become too skilled at surviving. Her husband, Daniel, used to dance with Lily in the kitchen on Sunday mornings. He died 14 months earlier, leaving behind debt, paperwork, and a child who had learned to ask brave questions in a whisper. Still, when St. Anne's announced the father-daughter dance, Claire said yes because Lily's eyes lit up. Her grandfather Walter promised to come. Then the buses failed that morning. Walter got stranded across town, and Claire's supervisor called her in because two people had missed their shift. She could refuse and risk the job that paid rent, or go and trust that somehow love would arrive on time. So she curled Lily's hair, fixed the hem of the blue dress by hand, tied the ribbon and whispered, "Miss Harper knows your grandpa is coming." "I'm so sorry, baby." "It's okay," Lily said, in that terrible brave voice children use when they are protecting the adults they love. Back in the ballroom, Nathan had no idea cameras were multiplying online. He only knew the child in his arms had relaxed enough to trust the moment. "You're very tall," Lily informed him. "I've heard that. Do all CEOs dance? Definitely not all of them. Then maybe they should practice." That one nearly made him laugh aloud. When the song ended, applause rose, not loud and performative at first, but warm, involuntary, relieved. Lily stepped off his shoes and looked suddenly uncertain, as though now that the music was over she might again become the child no one knew what to do with. Nathan crouched so they were eye level. "Would you like to sit down?" he asked, "or would you like another dance?" Lily considered this very carefully. "Another," she said, so he stayed. He stayed through two more songs. He stayed while she showed him the charm bracelet her father had given her the Christmas before he died, with a tiny moon attached, because she used to point at the sky from the backseat and ask whether stars got lonely in daylight. He stayed long enough to learn that her favorite color was blue like brave things, that she hated peas, loved libraries, and thought grown-ups lied when they said glitter was easy to clean. And little by little, the dance stopped being an act of rescue and became something quieter. Presence, the most expensive thing many powerful people never learn to give. At the edge of the room, Principal Moore whispered to Miss Harper, "Find her mother, now." And while office staff scrambled to reach Claire, something else was happening inside Nathan. He remembered being 8 years old, standing beside a school project while his own father sent a driver with a note instead of showing up. He remembered how absence can harden into ambition, silence, and a lifelong fear of needing too much. He did not want that for Lily. When the final dance ended, Lily looked up and asked, "Are you leaving now?" Nathan paused. What he should have done was simple: smile, say good night, return to his car. Let the story belong to the internet for a day and then fade. Instead he asked, "Would you like to show me the dessert table first?" That earned him a full smile. For the next 20 minutes, she gave him a solemn guided tour of cupcakes, punch, raffle baskets, and a display of hand-painted student tiles. Every few steps she checked that he was still following. Every time he was. By the time Claire rushed into the ballroom, hair half fallen from its clip, hospital badge still around her neck, breath broken from hurrying, Lily was sitting at a round table eating half a strawberry cupcake, while Nathan listened to an explanation of why second graders should be allowed to vote on lunch menus. "Lily," Claire cried. Her daughter jumped from the chair so fast the cupcake wrapper fluttered to the floor. "Mommy!" They collided in each other's arms. Claire held her face, kissed her forehead, checked her shoulders as if reassurance were something she could verify by touch. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." Lily clung to her neck. "It's okay, I wasn't alone." Claire looked up then and saw Nathan properly for the first time. Recognition flashed across her face, followed almost immediately by confusion, embarrassment, gratitude, and the particular kind of panic ordinary people feel when private pain has somehow taken place in front of someone famous. "Oh," she said, breathless. "Mr. Cole, I don't know what to say." Nathan stood. "You don't need to say anything." But Claire shook her head. "No, I do." Her eyes filled suddenly. "I told her someone would be here. I thought my father would make it. Then work." She stopped, ashamed of the explanation before it was even finished. Nathan knew that look too. the humiliation of being forced to narrate your struggle in fragments, the fear that context will sound like excuses. He softened his voice. She knows you wanted to be here. Claire pressed one hand to her mouth. Still, she shouldn't have had to stand there waiting. Miss Harper stepped closer. Mr. Cole stayed with her all evening. Claire looked from the teacher to Nathan to her daughter's still flushed face. Why? She asked, so quietly it was almost a child's question. Nathan glanced at Lily, then back at Claire. Because no child should carry that kind of moment by herself, he said. Claire cried then, not dramatically, not publicly, but with the exhausted surrender of a person who has been strong for too many consecutive months. She turned slightly away to gather herself, ashamed of tears in front of strangers. Nathan pretended not to notice until she was ready. Lily tugged his sleeve. Will you tell Mommy about the shoes? Nathan blinked. The shoes. She stood on your shoes, Miss Harper said, smiling through tears. Claire looked down at Lily. You did, Lily nodded solemnly. Because he learns fast. For the first time that night, Claire laughed. And that laugh, thin and startled and real, did something dangerous to Nathan's carefully managed heart. What happened afterward was not one miracle. It was a chain. The next week, Principal Moore told Claire that Lily's tuition balance for the year had been quietly covered through a donor fund Nathan expanded after the dance. Miss Harper created a special grown-up guest list so no child would ever again be left standing alone if life fell apart at the last minute. Walter came over that Sunday in his brown jacket with supermarket flowers and apologized through tears until Lily hugged him and said he could have the next dance. And Nathan, who had spent years believing he was too busy for small sacred things, could not stop thinking about the child in Silver Star shoes. 3 days later, he drove to their apartment with a white bakery box. Claire opened the door in a faded cardigan with a grocery pencil behind one ear and surprise all over her face. Mr. Cole, Nathan lifted the bakery box slightly. I was told 6-year-olds sometimes accept peace offerings in the form of lemon cupcakes. From inside the apartment, Lily's voice rang out. Mommy, is it the dancing CEO? Nathan laughed before he could stop himself. The apartment was small but warm in the ways that matter. Clean curtains, children's drawings on the wall, a school calendar on the fridge, and a photograph of Daniel dancing with Lily in a pumpkin patch. Nathan stayed just long enough for cupcakes, a badly read picture book, and the discovery that Claire had once wanted to study nursing before life interrupted her plans. When he left, he found himself standing beside his car for a full minute, looking up at their third-floor window where Lily was waving both arms. He waved back. Then he did something even more unexpected. He came again, not too often, not intrusively. He showed up at Lily's school art fair, sent Walter a car service for the next event, and arranged evening scholarship support through his foundation so Claire could return to community college. When she discovered the paperwork, she confronted him with tears in her eyes and anger in her voice. You cannot just step into people's lives and start fixing things, she said. Nathan stood in her kitchen while rain tapped at the window and answered with more honesty than he had intended. I know, he said. I'm not trying to fix your life, Claire. Then what are you trying to do? He looked toward the living room, where Lily was asleep on the couch under a blanket printed with constellations. I think, he said slowly, I'm trying not to repeat what I learned from people who had every means to show up and didn't. Claire's anger broke first into silence, then into understanding. That was the night she told him the full truth about the dance. How she had stood in the employee restroom at work gripping the sink when Walter called to say the buses had stopped. How she had nearly left her shift anyway. How Lily had smiled at her that morning with missing teeth and brave shoes and said, It's okay, Mommy. Important jobs can't always come to dancing. Claire cried quietly as she repeated it. No 6-year-old should know how to say something like that, she whispered. Nathan looked at the sleeping child under the constellation blanket and felt his chest tighten. "No," he said, "she shouldn't." Months passed. Claire took evening classes. Walter's knees got worse, but his storytelling improved. Lily learned to ride a bike and drew Nathan in every picture much too tall. Nathan changed too. He left the office earlier, kept crayons in his drawer because Lily said serious houses needed more color, and launched a school initiative, funding grief support and event inclusion for children who had lost a parent. But the true payoff of the story came almost a year later, in a gymnasium decorated with paper lanterns and handmade stars. St. Anne's had replaced the father-daughter dance with something new. The belonging ball. No child would again be excluded by the shape of their family. Fathers, mothers, grandparents, older siblings, godparents, mentors, family friends. Whoever loved you and showed up could take the floor. The idea came from Miss Harper, the funding came from Nathan, and the heart of it came from Lily. That night, she wore another blue dress, this one with tiny stitched constellations across the skirt. Claire wore a simple navy dress and actual lipstick for once. Walter wore the brown jacket. Miss Harper came. Mr. Salazar came. Half the city seemed to know the story by then, but no one mentioned cameras. They had learned something from the first night. Some moments grow best when handled gently. When the music started, Lily stood between Claire and Nathan and held out both hands. "One for Mommy," she said. Then she looked at Nathan. "And one for the man who stood up." He took her hand. So did Claire, and the three of them walked onto the floor together. There was no loneliness in the room this time, only light, only music. Only a child who no longer had to pretend bravery, meant standing still while everyone else was chosen. Later that night, after the last song, Lily leaned sleepily against Nathan's arm and said, "Do you know what I think?" "What?" he asked. "I think Daddy would like you." It was such a small sentence. It nearly undid him. He nodded once because anything more would have broken his voice. "I hope so," he said. Lily smiled, the drowsy, absolute smile of a child whose heart is no longer on guard. And that was the real miracle. Not that a CEO stood up. Not that a viral moment changed public opinion for a week. Not even that a room full of strangers witnessed kindness under chandelier light. The miracle was that one little girl, on what could have become one of the loneliest nights of her childhood, learned something different about the world. She learned that being left alone is not the same thing as being forgotten. That help can arrive in an unexpected suit. That grief does not cancel joy forever. That grown-ups can choose to step toward pain instead of politely around it. And Nathan learned something too. He learned that success is not proven by how many rooms open when you enter. It is proven by whether a small child feels safer after you do. Maybe that is the truth underneath every story people call heartwarming. We are not remembered most for our titles. We are remembered for what we do when someone small stands at the edge of a beautiful room and tries not to cry, for whether we notice, for whether we move, for whether we stand up. If this story touched your heart, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who still believes one act of kindness can change the ending of a child's memory forever.